Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. And today I am really pleased to have with me Andrea Jones. Andrea is a social media strategist and successful podcast host with over 7 years of experience. Andrea owns a full service digital marketing agency that was named the top digital marketing agency in 2021. Andrea also runs the Savvy Social School, where she serves over 200 students, as well as an acclaimed podcaster with the Savvy Social Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to listen as Andrea shares her tips on how being in the digital marketing space does not need to be all consuming in order to be successful, and why most social media marketers focus on quality instead of quantity. It's going to be a very interesting discussion today. Andrea, thank you so much and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited for today's conversation.
So am I. I love talking with other digital marketers because this field is so big, right? There's so much business for everybody, right? And everyone brings a different a different style, a different tact, and there's space for everyone in this space. I think it's very welcoming. So I'm very pleased that you're able to join me today. I would like to know a little bit more about your journey. How did you fall into this? And how did you
Yes.
become so awesome?
Thanks. Well, I was one of those people who liked social media in the early days. 2007, I started a YouTube channel. This was back before it was cool. It was very odd at the time to be recording videos of yourself in your house. And when I was in university, I minored in theater, ended up doing some marketing for the theater company, did an internship there. And then after I graduated, I met my husband who lives in Canada and moved from the US to Canada. And that move prompted me to launch my own business in 2014. Since then, I've grown it from freelancer to agency, learned a lot along the way. So I went to the School of Hard Knocks for that educational journey. And, the best thing about social media is that it's constantly changing. So a lot of what I've learned is just from applied knowledge, actually getting out there, doing it, and figuring out what works.
I love that because, going from a freelancer to, going into agency mode, that is not an easy step for some people to take. And I think what happens though is your customers that you serve that love you will help you out along the way, right? I think that if you do deliver great service and you do show that you're trying and you take ownership, they will actually help you, figure out like, oh, you made that mistake today, all right, no big deal, just make sure it doesn't happen again, right?
Yeah.
And actually figuring out how to delegate responsibility, how to start hiring specialists so that you don't have to be the person fingers on keyboard all day and all night to make that happen. That is an acquired skill. That's not something they really teach you in high school or in college. What would you say was the most challenging part of that part of the journey, and how did you overcome that?
It was definitely the team building. Being able to find people I can trust, number one, was really hard. There are a lot of people who talk a big talk out here on these internet streets, and they can't walk the walk. And so I really was challenged to find the right people for the team. And then once I did find the right people, then it was a whole new skill set to learn how to manage those people. And I say that that's my job today. Is I wear a lot of hats as the owner of an agency, but the biggest one is managing people. And so when I kind of really doubled down and invested time into the leadership piece, reading books, joining programs, learning how to lead our virtual team. That's really where I saw the biggest growth happen with the business. But it was rough for a while. I say 2017 was my year of hiring and firing. I learned fast that year about what makes a good team member and what doesn't.
What's interesting about that is, you touched on the skill level of the people that you are hiring, and sometimes they're their sales script is pretty slick, right? And that it's you start thinking like, wow, can I really make this happen? And can I really work with this person and can I grow with this person, right? Sometimes I almost started to find that I also fished in the, in the $4 to $6 an hour range when you're trying to hire people in Southeast Asia. And then I was like, wait a second, I'm doing so much management over here. Like, this isn't really what I should be doing. Maybe if I went a little bit higher, $20, 30, $40 an hour, type thing, will I get better? Will I get better service? Will I get more? Will I get better content? Things like that. And one of the things I've noticed is not necessarily, right? Because, like, especially when you hire, here I'm going to rant a little bit, when you hire writers, right? And, it's like their job is to write. And, you can do all the vetting you want. They can be, born and raised in North America, went to high school and college, here in this country or in Canada, like everyone else. That's fine. So I don't care where you live now in the world, right? But if you think that you deserve a certain salary based on where you live, talking to all those New York City people that think that, oh no, I only get $200 an hour. All right, well, good luck to you. Then please write, a 200 blog post that's worth $200, for example, right? And I think that fishing through all of that and sorting out those people and then being able to land on the people that you, as a business owner, know, like, and trust with your business, because basically it's your name that goes on it, that becomes the Andrea secret sauce, right?
Yeah. And you nailed it with the pricing piece because it really doesn't matter as much as we think it does. There's still high quality people out there at almost any price range. You just have to spend the time finding them. And I built this super rigorous hiring process for that reason. I make them jump through a lot of hoops, basically, just so that I can see what they're made of and if they'll fit with the rest of the team.
That's it's very interesting that you hit on the process, because that's actually where the secret sauce really comes in, right? You really do need to have a process in order to create a product that is deliverable multiple times. There's just no other way around it. Otherwise, you're just selling things freely, and it just becomes, like, everyone's dependent on Andrea's mind, and that's not really how it should be. It should be the style that you create, the quality of work, or maybe the niche that you choose to work in, right? But having those processes in place and documenting them. I've also found that there's a line. Do you document every single click? This is where you put in the title. This is how long a title should be. This is where, you need to check it against this database and make sure that it's less than 120 characters, that it fits in Twitter and it fits in the SEO module or wherever. How did you overcome that? Like, how did you figure out those little parameters? And at what point did you feel that I'm documenting too much, so I need to pull back a little bit and maybe hire someone that will think a little bit instead of just read my recipe that I just created?
Yeah, so I found that with the more team members I was bringing on, so the first couple of team members that needed to happen, but as the team was growing, it became really challenging to document every little squiggly line that needed to happen. And that's actually how I started my program. So the Savvy Social School was born from me teaching my team, okay, here's how we approach Instagram, here's how we approach Twitter, here's our framework that we apply to every platform. So yeah, I like to use video. We use Loom, and that's the fastest way for us to document things. But also, we hire people who are interested in social media. That's a big one for us. So if I have to teach you what an Instagram story sticker is, it's not going to work here because that's way too much to teach. But if I tell you, this Instagram story sticker could be better, then that's really where, some of those nuances can come in play when it comes to hiring the right people. So we try to hire people who are obsessed with social media so they naturally keep up with the changes. And we document everything as well on our side for how we specifically approach the various platforms.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to segue into your one big tip, which talks about how businesses can manage their social media pre Andrea or hiring Andrea or hiring another team. Like, um, it- how do you, first of all, I'd like to know at what point are you comfortable stepping in to help a business manage their social media? Because sometimes they may just call you up and just not have a clue, and then you realize, well, I can't talk in your voice, like I can't like make this happen for you. So can you walk us through a little bit about first of all how that process works, and then let's talk a little bit about the actual business of creating social media posts and why it doesn't need to be so overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah. So before working with someone else in social media, you definitely want to have two things figured out in your business. The first is the role that social media plays in your business. So it depends on what type of business you have. If you have an e commerce business, a lot of your focus is on conversions and getting people to the website. If you are a speaker or an author, for instance, your goal would be to, build up your credibility and your brand awareness, a little bit of a different strategy. So you want to make sure you know the ROI before you hire someone so that you can actually measure if that's happening. And then the second thing is you want to fully understand the transformation that your business has on your customers and clients. So you want to understand that, paint the end of the rainbow scenario, what happens before and after they work with us, because you need to be able to give that to the person who's managing your social media. And then once you have those two things, then you can start thinking about outsourcing. So, I do recommend spending about 3 hours a week on social media for most business owners. Social media is tough because a lot of people approach it as a content creator. And that's fine if you are a content creator, but most of the audience I talk to, they're, freelancers, agencies, creatives, coaches, they have a lot of other things to do in a day. And social media is just a piece of that. So, the 3 hours a week strategy will really help you break this down into something that's truly manageable for yourself. So you want to spend about an hour a week creating that content. And I like to use content banks for this, really, really leaning into some of that evergreen content you already have. If you have a conversation with a client, that could be a social media piece. If you have a podcast, we're remixing that into social media pieces. So really getting length out of your content and also repeating yourself often. Think of yourself as a little commercial when it comes to social media promotions. And then the other 2 hours in your week, you want to split those up throughout your weekday and spend that time connecting and engaging and networking with your community, especially for small business owners. This is huge when it comes to really establishing yourself because, the phrase is if a tree falls in a forest, does anyone hear it? Well, if you post something on social media and there's no one there to engage with it, does it really matter? So we really want to start building out that community by networking, engaging, commenting, and participating in social media. Even the word social media itself, social comes first, media comes second. So you want to think about the social piece and the media piece. And then I'll wrap up with this. As you're thinking about hiring someone, you're still probably going to spend about 3 hours a week. It's probably just going to look a little bit different. Now you're expanding into other platforms. Maybe you're recording videos. Maybe you're spending time reviewing content. We still keep it at around 3 hours a week.
How do you help people find their voice in a channel that maybe they're not totally accustomed to? Like, I'll tell you, one of the trends I'm seeing lately is that younger adults, Facebook is not a part of their life, right? It's just not. My kids don't have Facebook on their phones, right? They're just, and I ask them why, and they ask me back like, why? Why do I need it, right? And I think that's going to be a larger trend going forward 3, 5, 7 years from now, where there's going to be something else to fill that void. I think one of the platforms that maybe has better longevity, if I could call it that, is LinkedIn because it's more professional. But then again, maybe it's just I'm older and like set in my ways, right? But how do you help clients figure out like what is the best? where is the best place for you to be, and to craft the message specifically for that channel.
Yeah. So when we look at the channels, there are certain ones that attract certain demographics. Like if you are B2B, I'm going to recommend LinkedIn for you, for example. So there are certain platforms that can help with that. And then as far as the voice goes, I think any voice can work on almost any platform. I have a colleague who has a comedy show, and she does really well on LinkedIn because her comedy is related to the people on that platform. So your voice can fit depending on what platform you're in. But if you're still kind of developing that voice, there's going to be a lot of brainstorming happening. And I'm a huge believer of social media being a mirror. So it should reflect what's happening within your business. So if you have a conversation with a client, if you are a consultant, if you are an e-commerce brand, what does it look like when someone purchases something from you? And then we want to reflect that back on social media. So if you're kind of funny and witty behind the scenes, we want to see that on social media. If you're professional and you keep things clean, we want to see that on social media. So it's really having that third party observe what your business is like on the back end and then reflecting that back on social media. That's the fastest way to kind of figure out your voice.
What do you see as happening in the social media space in terms of privacy? And, like this little spat of, Apple devices, and you can't track, apps are asking you, can I track you? Can I not track you? And, the convergence of all that, because that's really changing, it's really changing like the demographics of who you can target and who you can't. Facebook is changing their rules. Um, a, a lot of the time, just to, who you can target, who you can't target. Then some of these platforms are doing a very good job of blocking it. In addition, you even have Apple devices now that allow you to anonymize. That's a word, right?
Mhm.
Anonymize your email address, so you're not even giving your real email address to somebody when you're signing up for a newsletter or an e-magnet or whatever. How are you helping your clients through navigate through those changes? In order for them to be future proof as
Mhm.
they're moving forward with you.
Yeah, I mean, the golden age of digital marketing is ending. Sadly, we can't just, put a dollar in the Facebook ads machine and make $100 anymore, right? So, the name of the game still is authenticity and trust when it comes to building relationships with your clients and customers. And I like to do that through content. So, you want to show up in podcasts, in YouTube videos, on social media with the kind of content that resonates with the right person. So, yes, we have less ability to target people. So, we need to help our clients and customers identify themselves, help them self identify if this is a product or service or offer that's good for them. Even we're seeing right now with Facebook ads costs are going up. But in our agency, we've actually been able to kind of stabilize them a little bit using dynamic content. So instead of targeting people based on their demographics, we use a wide net approach to that top of the funnel, get people to identify by watching a certain percentage of a video, then we can retarget them with more specific ads. And so when we're thinking about how we approach things like Facebook ads or social media content, it's going to take a little finessing. It's going to have to be a little bit more elegant. It's going to take more time, but ultimately, hopefully, we can still maintain the same results for our clients.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was really, that was really on point. And I think also, back in the SEO days, right, when everyone was trying to rank on Google for specific keywords, the first thing that Google nixed was keyword stuffing, and those keyword farms and things like that. And it all came back to the people that were still successful in optimizing a site for organic keywords. The keyword there was authenticity, right? Like, actually create content that people will like to read. Don't write for the search engines, write for people, right? And the people that did that, they're still going strong. I've had clients that have used us for SEO services, and the ones that really, stuck to that voice of being authentic, they're still ranking very high today without a lot of maintenance. right? And I think that doing that as well on the social side, just coming up with a plan, coming up with a voice, coming up with a, like with a branding dialogue, a design language, really, really helps in terms
Yeah.
of setting that up. So that's great, Andrea. Thank you so much for sharing that. Can you please let everyone know where they can find you on all the channels and how they
Yeah.
can reach out to you directly if they want to learn more?
Absolutely. So the best place to start is our free course. You can find it by going to onlinedrea.com/free. It's our little like Costco sample version of what our frameworks are like. So how we approach social media for our business and for our clients. Outside of that, I am everywhere at Online Drea. And if you like listening to podcasts, check out the podcast. It's Savvy Social Podcast. We are on all the apps and we release episodes every Tuesday.
I love it. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a lot
Thank
of fun. I love talking about this stuff, and you really brought the goods. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thanks for having me.